1055 with your host, Richard Rose.
Hi, I'm Richard Rose. Welcome to Exit 1055. Well, what are your kids smoking at school? The latest move to keep teens from taking up e-cigs. And can popular sodas cause cancer? We'll bring you the latest debate on that emerging story. But first, progress for thousands of Superstorm Sandy victims trying to put their lives and their homes back together. Just this past week, the state agency in charge of handing out federal Sandy relief money announced it will pay for the installation of fire sprinklers that may become required when some two-story homes are raised high enough to be considered 3 stories high. And that could save up to 1,000 Sandy victims an average of $15,000 to $20,000 to pay to put those sprinklers in. And there have been some big changes for local contractors as well that we want to tell you about. And here to help explain that for us is Ben Jackson of Ben's General Contracting. It is a Freeport contractor that's helping dozens of Sandy victims rebuild their storm-damaged homes. And the mayor of Freeport, Robert Kennedy, who has to make sure that all this local rebuilding is being done right according to code and will help withstand future storms. Welcome to the show, gentlemen. Mr. Jackson, let me begin with you. What's the good news for contractors here?
The good news is that New York Rising has dropped their requirement for a $2 million umbrella policy, which was well beyond what most contractors who can do this work have. Makes it a lot easier for us to do this work. It makes the costs much less for the end consumer.
And now we've seen checks going out, hundreds of millions of dollars in checks to thousands of victims. Is this money showing up, Mayor? Is New York Rising working?
I've actually been driving through the streets and people have come out to me and said we've received a check, which is something that has changed from 2 months ago where I don't think any monies had been released. People actually coming out and saying, I'm getting some money, thank you very much.
Even a month ago, and it's heartwarming for us too, because despite what people may think, we don't enjoy bringing doom and gloom to your set every day. We want to see this get fixed as well. Is this going to work? Do they have a plan that works, Mayor? Are we going to see a community along the South Shore that's better able to withstand storms?
I believe this is the best program that's been put forth so far. I believe that with the assistance of New York Rising, people will be able to raise. They'll find that extra money that they didn't have from their insurance companies. The ICC will pay $30,000 towards raising, and New York Rising is paying the difference. I think it's a great program, and I think it's going to help the village in the future.
And do you have any sense of what percentage of all these damaged homes are going to be elevated or raised higher?
We had 4,000 homes that were flooded in the village. 500 are still vacant, and 100 are red tagged and have to be knocked down. So 100 of those homes will have to be raised, and the remaining 500, which are vacant, will probably have to be raised when they're being rebuilt.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't understand. A lot of these homes are in federal flood zones. We have these new maps, and it's been out there for years. But it's not a choice in many cases. You're not going to be able to get an affordable mortgage or any insurance at all for your home that's affordable if you don't raise the home, right, Ben?
Yeah, that's correct. And also, I mean, if you had to pay a very high cost of flood insurance, it would definitely lower the value of the house.
It goes way up. Nobody'd want to buy the house from you under those circumstances. So you're investing in your home when you're doing this. Now, there were a couple of changes New York Rising has made to try to help people elevate those homes. Can you explain that, Mr. Jackson?
In addition to the insurance, they have a square footage allowance for the homes, but on top of that, they're also allowing some additional funds beyond that. Some of these houses are built too close together. It's not just a simple go in and raise it or even go in and build it new. They also have added money. I believe they've added money for fire sprinklers, but I believe they're going to add money for pilings and for concrete grade beams. Different type of construction because of soil conditions. So
New York Rising has heard the complaints, because these were the common complaints we heard at these meetings. And Mayor, do you see that people will now have the tools, the money they need? Is the zoning going to work? Are we going to see a further logjam of people just trying to get approved to do this?
I don't foresee a jam in paperwork or processing of raising homes. The buildings department has already made a waiver so you could raise your home and change the laws in the village. New York Rising is coming up with the money, and the FEMA has set standards. You know, they set a standard of 8 feet. New York State came up with 10, and the village of Freeport came up with 12 to help reduce this flooding in the future.
Well, you told me just moments ago that things have changed suddenly in the last month. I talked to you 2 weeks ago, and you worried there wasn't going to be money to pay for all the staff you're going to need to oversee this. Has New York Rising come through for you there?
Fortunately, just in the managerial aspect of the buildings department, New York Rising is going to provide $380,000 to our staff to assist just in Sandy-related building permits and inspections.
Because what do you got to do? You got to hire more people, don't
Yes.
you? Explain what the the local building departments like your own now has to do to make sure this
we have a
all
total buildings department, self-contained. We have our own electrical inspectors, fire department, our plumbing inspectors, structural inspectors. Everything's done from within the village, not done from the town. So we really have to send people out to inspect every job as it's being completed and verify it before they get their C of O.
And Mr. Jackson, you're glad to hear that, because a lot of times you're waiting for the officials to show up that you can deal with, right?
Yes, not in Freeport. Freeport has an excellent building department. They've always been on top of getting things moving, keeping jobs going, especially since the storm.
Well, now, have you got a bunch of orders to raise homes? Are we going to see this spring just all of a sudden homes being raised up all along the South Shore?
Tons. They're just piling up and piling up. New homes, people raising homes, people putting back who are at the proper elevation. There's all kinds of work that's sitting on my desk.
Well, now, here's the next big question. This is all supposed to, they have this word mitigation that nobody understood beforehand, but now it means build it better, right?
Yes.
So are we building better? Are we going to be better able to handle a future storm like what we saw?
Absolutely. We had originally had a base elevation for construction in the village of 10 foot. Now the village has raised it to 12 feet. I'm sorry, it was 8 and then it went to 10. Now we're at 12 because we saw at 10 we still got water from Superstorm Sandy. So I think this is going to help in the future, and we're not going to see the same type of results.
Any last hurdle for contractors that hasn't been dealt with, you think?
As far as New York rising, no. Other people are still waiting for money. They're waiting for those checks to come, but I think it is slowly coming out. I think once people start getting home, things will relax quite a bit.
Well, we want to thank you, gentlemen, for coming in and giving us an update on the ongoing recovery. What are we, 14 months plus into it now since Superstorm Sandy hit? Freeport Mayor Robert Kennedy and local Long Island contractor Ben Jackson, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us here.
And up next,